Basketball is a game of strategy as much as it is a game wherein adults throw orange striped balls into a hoop. And as a game of strategy, it's natural that the rules need amendments and addendums every few years or so. Keep the game up to standards that it always has possessed. Here are the new NBA rule changes nobody knew about. Keep watching to find out what Stephen Curry thinks of the whole ordeal. What are the new foul rules? First off, there are some minor changes made by the NBA to further count down confusion about how a foul may be called. Earlier this year, during the preseason game between the Warriors and the Trailblazers, Stephen Curry tried to use the mismatch on the perimeter to his sneaky advantage. Curry, a two-time NBA MVP, saw opponent Nasir Little almost shoot a three-pointer and as such jumped forward to create contact with the other player. This was done in an attempt to draw a foul, which is exactly the kind of behavior that the NBA hopes to avoid. To be specific, the league changes its rules often with the intention of discouraging players from making decidedly overt, abnormal, or abrupt non-basketball moves, which seems to be the case this time around. For the longest time, offensive players have managed to get an upper hand in the game by colliding into their opponents and drawing a foul. These new rules are put in motion to avoid that. An elaboration provided by the NBA Vice President of Referee Development himself. Monty McCutcheon, the NBA Vice President of Referee Development, stopped by the crossover NBA show with Chris Mannix and Howard Beck early in October and elaborated upon these new rules and NBA's exact purpose in this decision. He explained that if a player was placed at a disadvantage through good play, then a foul should definitely be called, offensively or defensively. So the NBA's new rule was not put in place to take away every pump fake. It was put there because basketball players, especially offensive ones, may try to perform a pump fake and abnormally launch themselves at an awkward and unseen angle. An angle that would then prompt a defensive player to hit that abnormal launch angle. Therefore, this new rule would not be entertaining falsely coerced fouls. He claimed, "We want to balance out the ability of a defensive player to compete with passion with an offensive player who can compete with passion. And when we find that balance, good competition is the result." The rule change: fouls. On the NBA Twitter account on the 8th of August, a thread was posted discussing how new playing rules may be enforced for the 2021-2022 season by game officials. To elaborate, multiple tweets were posted in the thread to explain what might or might not count as a deliberate non-basketball move. Clarification number 1. The aforementioned overt non-basketball moves used by offensive players to initiate contact with defenders was elaborated upon on the second tweet of the thread. It claimed that these moves would be considered as such when the shooter launches themselves or leans into an opposing defender at an abnormal angle, or when the offensive player spontaneously veers off their decisive path, which is to say sideways or backwards into a defending player. Clarification number 2. The Twitter account also posted about specific moves made by an offensive player may also be considered overt non-basketball moves used by offensive players to initiate contact with defenders when a shooter may deliberately kick their leg up or to one side at an abnormal angle, or when the offensive player's off arm hooks the defender. This often happens during the process of attempting a shot in a non-basketball manner. Clarification number 3. To further clarify, NBA even posted videos in their tweets numbered 4 through 7. These were provided as explanations and rulings into what it is and isn't considered a foul according to this new rule. In this 30-second game clip that the NBA official Twitter tweeted, they claimed it was a no call because the offensive player leaned into the defensive player at an unnatural angle. Contact was still marginal, and if that same case, the offensive player had initiated more than marginal contact, an offensive foul should be called. Clarification number 4. In this next video clip, the tweet described what should be considered and called an offensive foul, as the offensive player in question used their right shoulder and their hope to dislodge and disarm the defender, and as a result, the offensive player landed outside his normal floor position. 25-second clip established and served the purpose of differentiating between marginal contact and proper full-blown contact, and as such, the difference between a foul and a no call. Clarification number 5. The next 25-second clip also depicts a scenario where an offensive foul will be called. On this play, the shooter may kick their leg up at an abnormal angle for the sole purpose of initiating contact with the defender. defender. As a result, an offensive foul should be called on the play. Verification number 6. As another example of no call, this 33-second clip showcases an offensive player's off arm hooked the defender's arm in order to abruptly and spontaneously attempt to make a shot in a non-basketball manner. This did not really affect or impede the defendant's ability to continue defending the play, and so it was a no call. Which stars are the most prominent offenders? In another thread, the Twitter account detailed an interpretive change with more examples, more specifically point of education videos, and all the moves that were described in the thread posted on August 8 were showcased and explained. But more so than anyone, this collects major heat upon basketball player Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks, who's been known to employ these methods in his offensive gameplay on the regular. The 6'1" All-Star employs and excels at the trick of stopping short, a technique which results in the defender running up his back and committing a foul. He's not the first nor the last to employ such tricks in this gameplay, as the likes of Frank Costanza and James Harden of the Brooklyn Nets are also other examples that come to mind to employ such tricks. This is where irony kicks in. Does this stop the stopping short from being employed forever? In January this year, when the Hawks took on the Nets and consequently James Harden, Trae Young pulled the same stunt, causing an offensive foul. This must have enraged Brooklyn's head coach, who commented on how that's not basketball in regards to Young's play. This comment echoed far and wide and may have been what kickstarted the NBA League's rule change. This, of course, does not entirely stop the move from being considered a foul if the defender still manages to make full contact. But this allowed a fair criterion of judgment upon which defenders can choose to hold back from impulsively tackling offensive players. So no, this does not stop Trae Young and the likes of him from employing this tactic in the future successfully. Other reactions for the rule. Stephen Curry, superstar guard of the Warriors, was asked about the new league rule change. At first, he mentioned being a little confused about the rule, but once the game started and he got a good look at it in action and being implemented, he seemed to be very enthusiastic and on board. In his first quarter playing against the Portland Trail Blazers, Curry tried to launch himself abnormally into a defender that draws a foul on a three-pointer, and in the past he likely would have succeeded, but in the game he was awarded no free throw. What's considered marginal or exaggerated contact is still subjective in some cases, but that's how referees will be trained in the future. They might be able to look at and decide upon the offensive player's intent with the abnormal throw and the level of reflexiveness that the defender may attack with, and then come to a fair conclusion. Stephen Curry claimed that despite all this, he liked that the purity and the integrity of the game was being maintained this way. He concluded that the point of the game was to put the ball in the basket and not be out there just doing the most and attempting to get a free throw line any way you can. He also proclaimed that he loved this effort. New rule number 2, a minor change. This slight change in the NBA games will be noticeable in the final few, specifically 2 minutes of the contest and games. In the past, reviews for the calls that were deemed out of bounds at certain points were initiated by officials, but now coaches are handed the power and authority to challenge them, allowing them to continue doing what they have been doing the entirety of the game. The league has also decided to keep its play-in tournament, which will feature 4 teams battling it out for the last 4 playoff berths. This is a new format that was released earlier in the rule, but it was not so official as such. Now the league has decided to keep it in. Another unofficial but mildly necessary rule of sorts is the COVID-19 vaccination, as players who have been immunized and vaccinated are not subjected to as strict of a protocol and ones who haven't. And that concludes our video. Hope you enjoyed watching. If you enjoyed watching the video, be sure to leave a like and leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to get notified every time we post a new video.